Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll come to order officially in about another minute or so, a little less. We have folks who are watching us on Facebook and YouTube, so they'll be tuning in right at 6 o'clock, so we're paying a little more closer attention to the clock right now, but we're inside of 1 minute, and then we'll officially call our meeting to order tonight. Thank you for being here. All right, good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen, to our citizens, folks at home who might be watching us on Facebook or YouTube. We thank all of you for joining us tonight, and we'll have a few more comments to make about this time of the year and sort of look back over the last year as we look back and as we go forward also. But we officially call to order the March meeting of the Randolph County Board of Commissioners. We welcome each one of you here tonight for your participation, your observation as we go through our agenda. And with that, we have Mr. Bill Hatfield with us tonight, who's a chaplain with the Randolph County Sheriff's Department. He's going to do our invocation for us. And following the invocation, we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. So will you please stand?
Dear Lord God, Creator of the universe, we come to you this evening in reverential awe of who you are, and we are so very thankful for your continued many blessings on Randolph County and to this country. We bow tonight asking not only that they would continue, but also for the wisdom and the guidance of the commissioners here tonight as always. For those that we are acknowledging tonight who have retired, we pray for them and their families that they would be able to enjoy their time of retirement. Thank you for them and the time they put in to make Randolph County a great place to live. Lord, we give you this time for you to move as you seem fit, and it's for your glory, and in the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. I thought tonight that I would, before we get into our recognitions and our agenda, our official agenda for tonight, this is our March 2021 County Commissioners meeting. February ended 12 months of our dealing with the pandemic, COVID-19, the coronavirus here in the county and across our nation. Susan Hayes, who's our Public Health Director, was on our agenda tonight to give us more of an update on where we are, and especially since the vaccine now is so much a part of our life. But I thought I'd just sort of look back across the last year and where we've been as a county, what we've been dealing with, and I know each one of you in your own individual ways and in your families, and to whatever extent it has been and affected you. Every person in this room, every person watching at home has been affected one way or another, either by keeping kids out of school, family members who might have contracted the virus, any number of issues that one way or another has affected our life. But last year, March starts our second year of dealing with the virus. Last year on March the 13th, then President Donald Trump declared a national state of emergency and declared the COVID-19 an official pandemic. 3 days later, on March the 16th, the Randolph County Board of Commissioners met with the mayors and managers from all of our municipalities our health department, social services, law enforcement, EMS, all those groups, over in our county operations center. And at that time, I signed as chairman of this board, declaring a local state of emergency for Randolph County. On March the 23rd last year, we had our first diagnosed case of COVID-19 in Randolph County. On April the 3rd last year, Randolph County had its first death as a result of the virus. Today, and I think these numbers are probably as of Friday, today, 13,131 citizens of the county have tested positive for the coronavirus. As of Friday, 204 citizens of this county have died as a result of the coronavirus in Randolph County. We've had 124 positive cases within the employees of this county. One of those employees is in this room tonight, Sergeant Rodney Hardy, who's standing at the back door, keeping order and watching over our meeting tonight. He's been a fixture here for many months and has been sorely missed, and we're grateful for the answers to prayer, and he is an example of, and he can tell you what he endured, what he went through, but all of us probably have those that we know personally who have gone through this virus. Last year, in April, we began our first meeting of virtual meetings without attendance here. In June, we started televising or texting, videoing our meetings to those, again, that could watch on Facebook and on YouTube. So that's a little bit of where we've been, and you might, I'm sure you'll hear more about it when Susan makes her presentation tonight. But with all of this, we're still grateful to be here tonight in whatever way that we are. And we hope and we pray for more open times and to have more freedom in our lives. And I know that we have a presentation here tonight in the public comment period for those who want to continue to or go about having their events that they have been so accustomed to over the years. And the county has not put in our own or any other restrictions. We have encouraged our citizens to observe those requirements that's imposed by the state of North Carolina and our governor. Of course, that means our social distancing, wearing our mask, and our washing of our hands in particular, those things that we continue to do. But just thought we might be minded tonight of sort of where we've been and what the last year's been about. Some of you probably think it seems like it's been going on for 5 years. Others might think it seemed like it just started last month. But in some way, as I said earlier, it has affected all of our lives. And we have continued and tried to hold our meetings, be as public as we can in our meetings, be available for citizens who want to talk to us about various issues. So we thank you for that. And I have one more issue that I wanted to just sort of give you a quick update on, and that has to do with Randolph Hospital. It was 1 year ago, on March the 6th, that Randolph Hospital officially filed for bankruptcy. Today, our hospital is still in bankruptcy. For those of you that have followed this process in these open meetings that we've had, and then just around the community, the state of North Carolina, the General Assembly, set up the Rural Hospital Stabilization Fund. We've had 3 or 4 public hearings relative to the county borrowing that $20 million that is to be used to bring our hospital out of bankruptcy and to find a new buyer for that hospital. The prospective buyer for the hospital, who was a high bidder in the bankruptcy courts a few months back, was in Asheboro with his team all of last week. So they've been here, they've looked the hospital over, They've looked our community over. They met with our board. They met with our Asheboro City Council. That application that is essential to the future of our hospital is in the hands of University of North Carolina administration and the local government commission under the state treasurer's office here in the state of North Carolina. They have to vet that application. They have to vet the plan that prospective buyer has presented to them as his plan for bringing the hospital out of bankruptcy, keeping it open, providing health care, surgeries, and whatever health needs we might have available to the citizens of this county through Randolph Hospital. So right now, this board of county commissioners is waiting on decisions by others who will determine what actions and options we have to keep the hospital open and serving the citizens of the county. So I just wanted to sort of give us a little reminder of where we've been with the virus, and also to let you know sort of where we are with the hospital. The UNC committee that is reviewing that application has a meeting tomorrow morning. So maybe sometime before this week is out, we will get a response from UNC. Their response is forwarded to the local government commission, who will use that to determine the feasibility of the loan for Randolph County. And just so you know, and we have some on our agenda tonight, any debt that the county incurs has to be approved by that local government commission. So when we have expanded our jail, when we have added additions and renovations to Asheboro High School, when we're building a new middle school in Trinity, all of those things, all that debt has to be approved by that local government commission. It was set up during the Depression to prevent bankruptcies of local governments. Quite a bit of that happened during the Depression. Since then, no local government in North Carolina has failed. No government since 1930 in North Carolina has failed to represent their citizens. So that's a process, that's another checkpoint that we have, that we've done our job, that is a viable and legitimate project, and that we can afford to pay for it. So I just wanted to, before we get going tonight, I know some of you, when you have your agenda item, you might leave, but I just thought it's important to sort of be reminded of where we are and where we possibly can go, again, relative to what other folks decide on our behalf. And as the hospital issue continues to evolve, we will certainly keep you involved and informed as we go through that. So, again, thank all of you for being here tonight, and thank you for your attention as we've gotten our meeting started. We had a couple special recognitions on our agenda tonight. I think Lieutenant David Garner is here with us tonight for this. We've missed him a couple of months, but Captain Welch, who's retiring, is not able to be with us tonight due to health issues, and we certainly continue to lift him up in our prayers as also. So, Sheriff Seabolt, you want to come forward with Lieutenant Garner? David? Come on up.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is another honor. It seems like I'm coming up here every month with several retiring, which is a good thing. I hope each one of them enjoy a great retirement and a lot of time with their family. A little bit about Davey. Lieutenant David Garner was hired by the Randolph County Sheriff's Office on July 1st, 1995, where he was assigned to the Crime Scene Investigation Division. Lieutenant Garner remained in the CSI Division until October 31st, 2004, leaving at the rank of corporal for employment with the City and County Bureau of Identification in Raleigh. Missing his home in Randolph County, Lieutenant Garner was rehired by the Randolph County Sheriff's Office on August 16, 2007, and assigned to criminal investigations as a detective. Lieutenant Garner was promoted to sergeant in 2010 and reassigned to the ID division. On August 1st, 2010, Lieutenant Garner was promoted to the rank of lieutenant as a supervisor of CSI. On October 7, 2010, Lieutenant Garner received his Advanced Law Enforcement Certificate from the North Carolina Sheriff's Education and Training Standards Commission, and the highest distinguished accomplishment for the law enforcement officer. During Lieutenant Garner's tenure with the Sheriff's Office, he also volunteered as an emergency response team member for many years. David was not only on call as a detective and CSI investigator, but was also willingly able to take calls for an emergency response team. In retirement, David plans to spend more time with his wife, Alicia, and his daughter, Kaylin. However, he intends to remain on active reserve deputy with the Sheriff's Office, so his many years of training and experience will continue to benefit this county. David will greatly be missed by his law enforcement family, but rest assured that he will remain an active part of the Sheriff's Reserve Division. Lieutenant David Garner is recognized for 22 years of faithful service to the citizens of Randolph County, and I thank you for your service.
Thank you, Sheriff.
You want to say a few words?
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure serving the citizens of Randolph County for 22 plus years.
David, you come forward. For all those years, you get a clock. And you don't have to get up early. But I will say to all of you, David was on the list last month that we were recognizing, and those three represented about 63 years of service to Randolph County Sheriff's Department. And if Mr. Welch had been here tonight, that's another 22 and a half years. So that's about 85 years of service to this county that we've lost just since January the 1st of this year. And it's hard to replace experience and those folks that have befriended us and protected us every day and night of our life. And this clock comes with a lot of sentiment and a lot of appreciation to you and your colleagues for what you do for this county and our citizens. It says, grateful appreciation to Lieutenant John Davy Garner in recognition of 23 years of service, January the 4th, 2021, by the Randolph County Board of Commissioners. God bless you, David. Appreciate it so much. All right, we are at our public comment period. Madam Clerk.
Would you like me to read the rules of public comment as well?
Pardon?
The rules?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to go over the rules again. The rules of procedure for the public comment period. The public comment period will be limited to 15 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. If more time is required, it will be at the discretion of the board. Each speaker must give his or her name both orally and in writing before speaking. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Comments are to be directed to the board as a whole and not to one individual commissioner. Response, discussion, or action concerning issues raised during the public input session will be at the discretion of the board. Speakers will be courteous in their language and presentation, and speakers should not discuss matters which concern the candidacy of any person seeking public office or matters in current or anticipated litigation.
Dr. Wesley Fennell.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Wesley Fennell. I've been a resident of Randolph County for over 45 years. Due to a speech impediment and the importance of this issue, I request additional time to complete my presentation. The Confederate monument.
Dr. Fennell, this board would have to agree
Oh, I'm sorry.
to give you extended time.
Okay.
What do you think?
What was the question again, please?
How much time do you think?
Maybe 15 or 20 minutes.
No, sir.
Okay. Well, how much time then?
4 minutes.
4 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. The Confederate monument in front of this courthouse has bothered me tremendously. I see it as a symbol of white supremacy and a reminder of the tremendous suffering and injustices my ancestors were forced to endure. When on the morning of May 2017, it was reported that Mitch Landrieu, mayor of New Orleans, removed similar monuments in his town, I was motivated by him to try and convince the leaders in Randolph County to do the same. The United Daughters of the Confederacy was responsible for its erection in 1911, and hundreds of monuments, buildings, plaques, and other tributes to the Confederacy. Most of these monuments were erected long after the Civil War had ended. They were erected in the 1910s and 1950s, effectively monumentalizing white racial resentment during a time of Jim Crow and the civil rights movements. In these periods, anti-Black racist violence and intimidation, the United Daughters of the Confederacy markers were visible symbols of white terror. The Randolph County Confederate Monument, as well as many others, were erected near courthouses as a reminder to Black folks that white institutions are not there to serve their interests. It is a reminder that if you are Black, you are not likely to get a fair trial or fair treatment inside that building. The members of the UDC are saying, this is a white man's government. Now let me put this in perspective. In 1898, not long before the erection of these monuments, Wilmington, North Carolina, witnessed a race riot led by whites, which left 3 whites dead, 11 Blacks killed, 25 Blacks wounded, and many other Blacks chased out of town. This riot started because of the city's racially integrated Board of Aldermen. There were 4,000 lynchings of Blacks throughout the southern states and over 100 in the state of North Carolina. An estimated 3,500 were committed by the KKK. Now, during this period, the United Daughters of the Confederacy endorsed and promoted for use in white schools a history of KKK that praised the work of the Klan as heroic. The KKK founded in 1866 by former Confederate veterans who wished to resist policies aimed at establishing political, and economic equality for African Americans and preserve white supremacy. Therefore, these Confederate monuments, at least in part, are honoring the founders of the KKK on public property. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Fennell, thank you for coming tonight. You've been here before, right?
Yes, a couple of times.
Have you ever been denied the opportunity to speak before this board?
I'm not previously, but this time I'm denied the opportunity to finish.
Well, that's our public comment because it's not related specifically to our agenda, and that's in fairness to the other folks that are here.
Yeah, right.
But you didn't come in here in fear tonight.
Sir,
You didn't come in here in fear tonight.
I didn't understand the echo.
I'm saying you didn't come in here to speak to us tonight out of fear for being here. And we understand what you say. We have met with members of the NAACP, numbers of them, just in the recent weeks. And thank you for your presentation tonight.
Can I respond?
Pardon?
Can I respond to your comment?
Quickly.
I'm not associated with the NAACP at this time.
Okay.
And I'm speaking as an individual.
Okay, thank you.
I don't understand why you brought that up.
Well, just that we are meeting with members of the African American community here.
Yeah, I'm an individual. My name,
whatever.
I'm
Yes.
not, I'm representing myself as a citizen of Randolph
Right.
County.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay.
Janet Hill.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak to y'all tonight. My name is Janet Hill. I represent the Liberty Antiques Festival. The Antiques Festival is every last Friday and Saturday of April and September. It's been going on. This will be the 30th year that we've had it, minus last year, like Mr. Fry said. It's been challenging for everybody. And that's why we're here. We are hoping that we can work something out to be able to have it again. The show is coming up at the end of April again, and we would have to start advertising immediately to be able to have the show. And we can't, of course, we can't afford to spend $40,000, $50,000 on advertising and then turn around and not be able to have it. So I wanted to address y'all to see if there was something that we could do. I do realize we deal closely with the tourism department here in Asheboro, and they told us that according to the governor's thing, you could only have 50 people outside. That's hard for me to see, but because like Smithfield's, for instance, at Siler City, they can have 80 people inside. Well, we're on a 200-acre farm. Now, granted, we're not covering that with the festival, but there's probably at least 50 acres that we are using for that festival. And so I figured it up. If everybody stayed 6 feet apart, that'd be 6 square feet would be 36 square feet, okay? So then I divided that out by how many feet was in the acre, and I done it for 50, and I done my math. But long story short, it comes up to like 60,000 people. Now, granted, we have a parking lot, and we have tents and the antiques and everything, and we're not occupying that with just people. But I would say that a fourth of that is open. I don't think that over 3/4 of what we've got there is tied up, with cars or antiques or anything else. So therefore, it would be still 15,000 people. Now, granted, I would like to have 15,000 people, but we don't have 15,000 people. But I would like to. So, we do it a 2-day show, and, we may be looking on an average, we might be looking at, 4,005, something like that. Although I really don't expect to have that crowd this time. I know that being through this pandemic is going to affect it. people's not going to come from as far off as they, normally would, travel out of state and everything else. So I'm sure that we're not going to have that amount of people there. But we do have a lot of loyal dealers that are anxious to set up and have the show, and we get calls from them every day. And, we can continue to tell them that we're trying to abide by everything. Only thing I can say is that, it is open. It is, it's on a farm. It's wide open. As far as the food vendors and stuff, there wouldn't be a problem, I don't think, for them to set people apart, to mark the property. It wouldn't be a problem to put hand sanitized stations, all around, even in each booth, if they would, if you could get the people to do it. Okay, and anyway.
Is that 3? Let her have another one too.
Okay, all right, so anyway, I'm just trying to present to you, it does help, of course, it hurts us because that's our income, but it helps the county greatly. It benefits the town of Liberty, whether it's restaurants, service stations, motels, hotels in the area, even the zoo. A lot of people come and they'll pick up the zoo while they're here. So it is a big income property for the county. So I just wanted to present that tonight and see if there's maybe something we could do.
I've been there.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. How many food vendors do y'all usually have? I mean, on an average year, if you go back,
10 to 12 different food vendors.
And then your regular antique vendors, how many vendors is that on average,
A little less than 400
Vendors?
vendors.
Wow.
But we have them in 25 by 20 foot spaces, and we have extra large aisles. They're like 30 feet aisles. So there's nobody, you're not really cramped in like you're close up.
And your average attendance is usually on a normal year, 5,000-6,000?
Yeah.
I just wondered.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we haven't made any rules.
I realize that. I think what bothered me is, I know that, I'm not trying to tell on nobody, but Denton Farm Park, they had their show last year, which is in July, and it's 5 days. And I went because I was curious. I thought, how'd they get by having this thing in a weekend? I probably only seen a half a dozen, well, maybe a dozen people that had masks on. Everybody just walking around like normal. And I had been there before, so I could compare it to, what I had seen before. Chatham County, they had their Farmers Day for 2 days in September. And I know there's some antique shows that's in Charlotte and also in Eflin that's scheduled. And also the flea market in Raleigh at the State Fairgrounds, they have that every weekend. Of course, I realize that's the government and they may not call their own hand.
I would suggest that you work with our health department to see if there's other interpretations or anything that you can see.
And we have talked to them and worked with them along with the tourism, but I didn't know if y'all might have some brainstorm here to help us out.
We can all talk to our representatives and see if they'll loosen up things and more.
Right.
Maybe by April they will.
Well, we hope so. We hope things can get back to closer to being normal, don't we? I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
I would suggest that,
Hey, Hope, pull your mic down.
sorry, thank you, Chairman. I would suggest that if you try to get guidance and to go forward, that you do all that you can to have safety protocols in place, because what we tend not to think about is how the public perceives, what you're doing, whether they perceive that you're handling things, safely or not. And that's important to them, whether they'll attend or not. I have people that call me and they'll say, well, this was my experience at this business or that business. And I said, well, did you talk nicely to them and let them know about your concerns? Well, no, I called you. Well, I mean, I'm not going to do anything. That business owner needs to know that they're losing business because of concerns that someone has. And if there's a better way to do something, then you're not being fair to that business owner by not talking to them about that and giving them the opportunity to do better. My husband always said, if somebody left his store, if they got upset about something and never came back, that really didn't help him unless they took the time to talk to him about what it was, to give him the opportunity to do better. I have a friend who's moving to Randolph County. I found out they were purchasing a large piece of farm equipment. I suggested, since they would be moving to Randolph County, that they purchase it in Randolph County because we could use the tax dollars, but they could build relationships. And so that he had a business where he wanted to purchase it. He went into the business, did not see any safety protocol in place. He has some underlying health conditions that would not be visible. His wife has battled cancer, and he said, I walked out. He said, I could not spend time in that business. I could not take that chance. So he bought it somewhere else. I think if I thought I might lose out on $35,000 sale, I think I would maybe do things differently, or like to know that what I could do to get that. So there just are those perceptions out there, and it's important to make the adjustments that you can to do things as safely as possible.
Can I say something? Well, I appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you all for your organizers and the landowners for being here. And of course, I serve in hand on the TDA board, so I was a little bit familiar with this issue. And I know that they have reached out to the health department and had some discussions with them about. And of course, if you know me, you probably already know that I think this executive order mandates are completely ridiculous, especially on a 50-acre farm when I can have 70 people in a pizza restaurant downtown that's a quarter the size of this room. Anyway, but I know you've already, and you mentioned in your comments, talked about trying to figure out some kind of precautions and regulations and safety measures to take. So I know you're kind of already thinking in that direction. So I would encourage you to, work together with the TDA and the health department and see if we can't figure out some way to move forward. It may be impossible, I don't know, but I think it's definitely worth the effort, because we need to, like you were saying, the business opportunity at the dealership was a $35,000 piece of equipment. I imagine this endeavor over 2 days is more than $35,000. I'm not asking, I'm just guessing. So, I know you would like to get back to doing business, and I would like to see you get back to doing business. So let's just continue to have an open conversation about how to try to make that happen in Randolph County. But thank you.
Thank you. We have another one?
Yes. Ryan DeBerry.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. I'm Ryan DeBerry. I'm a lifelong citizen of Randolph County. While there are many reasons I'm here tonight, what finally got me involved was the 4th suspension of my oldest daughter, who is 9 and attends, when allowed, Randleman Elementary School. When I was in school, kids were kicked out for breaking rules and causing trouble. Now you just have to be in close proximity to someone that was sick. My daughter, Kate, has had in-class training 8 days over the past 3 months. During the most recent school board meeting, my wife and I told the story of our kindergartner and 4th grader constantly being unwelcome at their school. The days following were full of positive comments and support. Friends, strangers, parents, even my 5th grade teacher reached out. So many people feel the same way, and we need schools to be truly open. We need to stop quarantining the healthy. It appears there is a disconnect between the leadership, the officials, and its constituents. An interesting discovery from a credible source is the teacher that exposed my child's class was allowed back to work before the students were allowed back in school. I watched last month's Public Health Board meeting. I heard numbers involving overdoses in Randolph County. While 2019 had a higher count of overdoses, 2020 had more overdose deaths. Deaths went from 36 in 2019 to 53 in 2020, a 47% increase, and that makes sense given the year we encountered. I wanted to dig deeper and see what other deaths occurred in our county in 2020. There were 1,368 total deaths recorded. Of those, 68 were COVID-19 related. Polling my coworkers, most assumed overdoses would be more. Most also assumed COVID-related deaths would be higher. My goal is not to make death numbers irrelevant or take away from what teachers are having to deal with. My goal is the opposite. There are some concerns with the numbers I found, the first being how the numbers are reported. I mentioned 68 COVID-related deaths in Randolph County, yet the Public Health Facebook page stated 122 on December 29th of 2020. With help from the Register of Deeds, the discrepancy is due to the counting of COVID-related deaths that occurred in Lee, Forsyth, Guilford, and other neighboring counties, and I was informed that is not standard practice. If a Randolph County resident dies from a car crash in Guilford County, the record shows a Guilford County death. Why the inflated number, I ask? Do we not have adequate resources to treat our own citizens? Or are the numbers inflated to continue the pandemic mindset? My concern is how 53 people died from an overdose, and it is not common knowledge, yet our whole lifestyle was impacted by the 68 COVID deaths. Where is the concern for the other 1,300 deaths? When do we start letting unelected officials govern our lives? Who takes the blame for children still receiving subpar education, or none in some cases, while trampoline parks are at max capacity? When did we as citizens allow suggestions to take place of laws? I will take some blame, as I've been on the sidelines for too long. Maybe the lack of community involvement allows for faster changes and less responsibility. I fear that even the smallest and most conservative of places will begin to react more to the volume of the speaker and not the merit of the message. Please allow Randolph County to be an example to the counties around us on how to lead the path back to the way things were. I encourage the commissioners, the school board, the health department to truly and fully open education and commerce while still using wisdom and caution. I ask you allow your citizens who are parents, teachers, and taxpayers to provide you with more input and to allow them to accept some self-responsibility in their own decisions. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you,
I'm open to
Michael.
dialogue and questions.
Any questions?
Maybe there are none.
I have a
think-
comment.
I
Okay.
think we have.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have both of our school superintendents in our audience tonight. I'm sure they have heard your message, and thank you for presenting tonight. Okay. Is that it? Okay. All right. We'll move to our regular agenda, our consent agenda. I will note before we go forward on item F, there's been an addition for the associated budget amendment to that item. It was already on the agenda, but Will has added a budget amendment to go along with that item. So first item is our consent agenda. Anyone who wishes to take one of those items off of the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the consent agendas.
Thank you. To have
Second.
a second. Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the consent agenda is approved. First item, new business, Sarah Lanier, who is here for her grant for the JCPC, Juvenile
Good
Crime
evening, Mr.
Prevention
Chair.
Council.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having me tonight.
Judge, I should say judge.
Well, I come here not as a district court judge
Judge
tonight,
Lanier.
but as a member of our Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. Ethics prevent me from serving in both capacities, asking for funding. We are fortunate that we applied, our Juvenile Crime Prevention Council applied for funding through the state to receive an extra $30,000 for our gang assessment. I'll remind the council or the county commissioners, several months ago, I can't recall exactly when, but these county, you as county commissioners unanimously supported $30,000 to go to a gang assessment, which our JCPC, our Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, felt it was necessary given the fact that it has been over 10 years since we've had one. We needed additional funding. We sought that through the state, and I'm here to say that we got it. We just need you as county commissioners to approve that money coming through the county. It'll be an additional $30,000, and I'll note that the letter from Cindy Porterfield, the director of the Department of Public Safety, mentions that it's to the credit of these commissioners, to you, for your support and our community's support of this endeavor. So I appreciate I appreciate the initial investment, and I hope you will consider voting for the $30,000 to come from allowing us to use this grant money, essentially.
So this is actually a matching grant.
It is. Well, it's not necessarily a matching grant. We were fortunate enough for them to give us the full amount that we requested. That does not necessarily
So
happen.
it's just coincidence that it matches?
It just is a coincidence that it happened that, and I attribute that to you as commissioners for your investment.
So you're asking us to accept money? on your
I am.
behalf?
That's why I said I hope this is the easiest thing you do tonight.
This is very unusual.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
And ultimately, I mean, with this gang assessment, like I said several months ago, this is going to go hopefully and pull more resources. We can use this to seek additional grant money for our community and really target what the areas are that we're lacking in and what we can use to help prevent these children and these youth from actually getting into gangs before it becomes an issue. So that's the ultimate goal.
So there could be some more down the road, depending
We hope with this assessment, we're setting ourselves up and other agencies up, law enforcement, schools, to look at these numbers and really focus in on what our areas of need are.
All right. Okay. Our motion would be to accept the $30,000 grant and include the budget amendment that goes with it.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second that we approve the gang assessment grant in the amount of $30,000 and the budget amendment that sets that up in the county's books. Further discussion or questions? Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And it's approved.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Randolph County COVID-19 impact update. Susan Hayes, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for inviting me to come. Give you the update that we have so far to date. We do this update every week. You and a lot of people in Randolph County receive this. These figures, most of them are as of Friday, February 26th. So as you mentioned, Chairman Fry, we've had to date for the last year 13,131 positive cases. We're right now, the proportion of positive cases is about 8%. It's 7.9%. And as you know, the goal is for that to be 5% or less. So we are closer to where we want to be. We have had a total of 204 deaths. Deaths for communicable diseases, COVID-19, are registered in the county in which the person resides. So not the county where they died. It's the same thing if we had child fatalities. I think Chairman Fry, you and I have talked about this before at these meetings. When we have a child in foster care who dies out of county, that death is recorded as a death to a Randolph County child. So we count that in Randolph County. So far we have given take that back. So far we have given, as of today, 6,960 first doses of vaccine. So we are extremely excited about that. That is what Randolph County Public Health has given. Randolph County has been allotted 13,940 doses of vaccine since December 14th.
Now, is that all first doses or?
That is all first doses. Today we held a clinic at the health department where 1,170 first doses were provided. We have received an allocation for this week, and that clinic we had today was a catch-up clinic from when vaccine was delayed because of the weather out west.
I was going to say, because last week we weren't expecting any, but
Exactly.
You're going to get another one later this week?
Yes, we'll get another 1,170 doses that we'll make available on Thursday and Friday of this week. And we do our first doses on Thursdays and Fridays and our second doses on Mondays and Wednesdays. It's very complex when you start trying to manage different kinds of vaccine, Pfizer, Moderna, different lot numbers. And if you're doing a lot of doses like we did today, if you were to have different types of vaccine plus different lot numbers, it's just too much opportunity for error. So we found that it would be easier if we could split up when we do our second doses, our first doses and our second doses. So that's what we do.
Do we think we're getting our fair share? Some of these big numbers, but
yeah,
those are not coming, they're coming a different way.
I know it. I think the state is being very appropriate in how they disperse the vaccine, given the amount of vaccine they're given every week. I'm excited that Johnson & Johnson was approved this week. I think that will be a game changer because it's one dose. It is much easier to store. So I think we'll see that more in local provider offices, physicians' offices, small pharmacies will be able to, not the corporate pharmacies so much, but a smaller pharmacy would be able to manage that much easier. It's only one shot. They just need a refrigerator. They don't have to have ultra-cold storage or other kinds of freezers. So I think Johnson & Johnson will really make a big difference in the amount of vaccine that we can get out in each county and particularly into communities.
Will we get some and when?
We don't know yet, but I hope so. We should get an update tomorrow about vaccines and what the plan the state has is. We always get notified of our allotment on Thursday evenings. It's usually after lunch sometime. So I'm hopeful that we'll get some Johnson & Johnson in Randolph County because I think people that are reluctant to get a vaccine because they're not, a little nervous about getting a shot, I think they would be more agreeable to getting a vaccine that was only one shot versus two. So I'm very hopeful.
So let me ask a couple of questions, if you don't mind. Do you have, you probably don't know this, but I'll ask just in case. The FEMA clinics that will begin to be held in Greensboro that are sponsored by the federal government, of course, and they'll be pumping out 3,000 doses a day starting March the 10th. Do you know if there'll be the Johnson & Johnson? I
do not know. I sure don't. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but I don't know. And I'm extremely excited about that FEMA clinic because my understanding is there's only it and another one, I think, in the country at this point. So we're very fortunate to have that nearby.
Can our citizens go there?
Yes, sir. They most certainly can.
It's federal, right?
Yep. 3,000 doses a day for 8 weeks. So it is exciting. It's at Four Seasons Town Center. And as Chairman Haywood said, it will start on March 10th. So that is extremely exciting. Excuse me, Commissioner. I'm sorry, I bumped you up.
I don't want that job, believe me. Don't worry.
I gave you a promotion, Hope. Sorry.
Don't want it.
Fine.
Don't want it. Okay, and I have one other question. Commissioner Allen here can check my stats. So I'm just looking at the population of Randolph County as being 143,000 people. If I were really doing it accurately, I would figure the adults. But I just used the population of Randolph County as being 143,000 people. So it appears that if you look at all the providers in Randolph County, and so when I say providers, I'm talking about all the drugstores, the Randolph Hospital, Randolph Public Health, everybody who's given it. Then we have given first doses to about 10%. No, about 10% of the population has experienced COVID, about 10%. And given your most recent statistics about vaccine, between 9 and 10% have been vaccinated, okay? So 10% of the population has had COVID, and about 10% has been vaccinated. And we hear discussions about herd immunity, and I've heard all kinds of figures about herd immunity. So what percent of the population should either have had COVID or have the vaccine to constitute herd immunity?
70 to 80% of the population to get herd immunity.
Okay, so 70 to 80%, and we're sitting at about 20%.
Right. So we do have a little ways to go, but, you know, numbers have sort of dropped over the last few weeks, though this weekend we have seen from a national view and a state view that numbers are beginning to, though they've dropped, they've kind of plateaued and started to edge up just a little bit. Not this past weekend, but the weekend before, we had 30 positive cases over the weekend. This weekend, we had 104. So that worries me just a little bit. We also had some very young people in their late 20s and early 30s end up in the hospital over the weekend. So, you know, we all
Apparently that's an issue nationwide, because I just got a notification in here tonight from a news organization that the CDC has issued some kind of a statement about that recent uptick.
Oh, yeah, it is a nationwide thing, and we're seeing it in North Carolina, too. They mentioned it on our conference call last week. We've got that conference call with the state tomorrow, so we'll see. But, you know, sometimes I think we just kind of get ahead of ourselves. If we can just hang tight and stay the course, we're going to end up in the right place. But, you know, it's been a long haul, and everybody's kind of tired of it, and I understand. But we can't let it go yet. We're getting there.
Susan, part of it is some of the calls I get, questions I get. It might go back to our previous speaker. We're in a triad. We're next door. We got 25,000 people every day goes to Guilford County to work. But some do 14-day quarantine. Some do a 10-day quarantine. What's the difference? Why can't we be uniform in what we do?
Because the reason is everybody wants to do what they want to do, I think, and so they give us options. And the bottom line is it is a 14-day incubation period. So if you're exposed and you've had no symptoms so far, and it's day 5, and you work in a very critical kind of setting, you could go get tested, and as long as you have no symptoms and your test is negative, you could go back to work with PPE, masked. You know, you could do that. But somebody's got to check on you to make sure that during that 10-day period, that's what's going on. And, you know, you only have so much resources, honestly. You only have so many people to do this checking on people. I've known several folks, a couple of which are a part of our staff, they tested positive on day 14. They had no symptoms until day 14, and they tested positive the last day. So there's a reason why we have that 14-day quarantine, but you know, because people want to do what they want to do, and I understand that, the government, CDC, has tried to be reasonable and provide opportunity, especially for critical infrastructure workers, to be able to do the work they need to do. Because, you know, again, that's like people in hospitals. If you don't have doctors and nurses to take care of people, then, you know, that's a problem. So the way to get them back is to, if they're exposed, they don't have any symptoms, it's day 5, let them go get tested. They continue to not have symptoms. At the end of 10 days, they can go back to work.
Most of those questions have come from regarding schools and getting the kids back in class.
I understand.
That's where most of the questions have come from.
It is extremely labor-intensive to do contact tracing.
And I think some of this has gotten with a bill that's going through the General Assembly right now that requires the schools to do the tracing, the tracking. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, they're doing it now. I mean, in the beginning, I doubt that our schools, especially Randolph County schools, I know I would be talking to them at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night sometimes about situations. We still talk about situations. It is very resource exhaustive to be able to do that for, 17,000 students roughly in Randolph County schools? 16, 17,000.
City's got 45.
Yeah. So it's very labor intensive, and we don't have the staff, they don't have the staff. So you know, you have to choose your battles. Do you be safe because you know you're safe, keep kids safe? What do you do? How do you do? It's a very hard question to answer, and I understand where parents are coming from. Totally get it, as do, I'm sure, both school systems. But it is very difficult to manage. Before I forget it also, I want to mention, I got contacted by one of our environmental health specialists that said the organizers of the Liberty Antiques Festival had given them a call today. So I sent a message to Raleigh, the Division of Public Health, and asked them to help us look at their situation, because we agree, and I think they will too, it's not like what you said.
Yours, yeah.
You know, it is different. It's a different situation. And so we've made a request for them to help us look at that situation. And my guess is it will require a plan. You know, what are they going to do? How are they planning to keep people safe, that kind of thing. But we'll certainly work with them and try to help them get that situated. And I'm extremely hopeful that by April, our numbers are going to look even better, because we're going to have so much vaccine out that everybody's going to be safe by then, I hope.
Because they let them go back in the racetrack over there in Burlington.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's a big place. But we worked it out with Caraway. He had a plan. We called Raleigh. They sat down and looked at it with us. He had his stuff going. It impacted him some, but I'm going to tell you what, they were about the best folks ever to work with. They understood. They worked extremely hard to make sure that it worked well. They were very thoughtful in what they did, and he had a complete plan. So we can do that with them. We'll do our best.
Because of the movement, you're not sitting in one spot.
Yeah.
And if you got, what she said, 400 vendors, you're going to be moving.
Yeah.
So I think that helps, just a matter of the flow. And
Absolutely. I go every year. I mean, I look forward to it twice a year. Of course, we didn't get to go this September, but I love Liberty Antiques Festival. But again, it is, in my opinion, it is different than the other situations in the executive order. So we'll ask them to look at it with us.
And Chairman Fry, I was talking about the the screening of exposures and that kind of thing. There are some of the health department, Sam Varner puts out to us, and I've used at our work, some great flow charts because it is confusing on symptoms with no exposure, exposure, no symptoms, and then what you do. So it's almost you have to go through that protocol. And that's what I've used it in my work. So it's very helpful.
And if you've had both shots, you still got to wear your mask.
Yes, you still got to wear a mask. You want to do that.
But when are you safe?
When we get herd immunity. When 80% of our, 75% of our population has had it or had a vaccine. But let me tell you this: if you've got both vaccines and it's been 14 days since you received your second vaccine, you're considered fully vaccinated at that point in time. And if you are in contact with a known positive case at that point, you don't have to quarantine. As long as it's been 90 days, less than 90 days since you were exposed. So I think what we're going to find, and you know, all these recommendations are based on science. It is evidence-based. And what they're seeing is that when you have COVID, or if you've been vaccinated, that we know you're safe for 90 days, but we think you're safe for longer. And the data is pointing to that. And so I fully expect that we'll find that 90-day window pushed out to much longer. So.
And the number that's being hospitalized keeps going down. Cone is closed, Green Valley?
They have, and that's great news. That was wonderful news. So we're heading in the right direction.
Well,
I'm just hoping this little ramp up we had over the weekend is like a little speed bump or something.
Well, if the governor's veto is overrode, what does that allow us to do relative to schools in particular? I think it will be overrode.
Well, you know, I think you have to remember that particularly our schools in Randolph, there are schools in North Carolina that have not set foot, children have not set foot one day in those schools. That is not the case in Randolph County. So we are in good shape. Now, are we in great shape in terms of, you know, not having to send kids home if there's been exposure? No, but that's communicable disease, and that's how that works. You know, it wouldn't be any different if we had a case of measles or Shigella or whatever else we might have. But Randolph County is in good shape. Their schools have done an excellent job because we've been in school. But Wake County's not been in school. They haven't been in school at all. So there are other counties in North Carolina that haven't even tried to be in school. But our schools have.
Could I ask a question on your first and second shots? I guess maybe over the weekend, for some reason or other, I heard 2 or 3 news reports about problems with getting the second shot, meaning that people are not showing up for the second shot. Could you kind of address that, where you guys are or whatever?
The vast majority of people do come. Now, I know there's been, like, for example, we had someone last Friday that their husband had been sick and they had been in the hospital, and so they couldn't come. But we have seen things like that where people had to reschedule appointments. But for the most part, our folks are coming.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That concerned me when I've heard 2 or 3 reports pretty much in the last week about different areas that are experiencing this problem.
Yes.
Number one, you don't get the exposure for the amount of time you're supposed to. But secondarily, also that it messes up your count process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's another reason I think Johnson & Johnson is going to be great. It's one shot, and it's extremely effective against severe illness and hospitalization and death. So I think it's really a good thing.
But you're not experiencing a lot of that not showing up for second shot thing.
No, every clinic we might have a handful of people who don't show up for whatever reason, but it's typically a good reason. I mean, it's not because and that's for first doses. That's not so much the case for second doses. Our second doses are coming.
Good. Because that's what these new reports are about, is second cases weren't coming in.
Yeah. Mostly ours are, so I think we're in good shape.
Good.
What do we have leeway to do that promotes getting the kids back in school? How much leeway do we have? And it's not, I don't know, our school superintendents are both here. They have been going to school. I think the issue is what happens when that one child in a class tests positive and we send 32 kids home for 14 days.
You need a team of contact tracers that are available to every school to be able to sort that through every time, to say, how long were you within 6 feet of the person who's positive? Can you verify that you were? They're doing that already, but in order to be 100% sure that not all 30 children in that classroom, which we don't have 30 in a classroom now, I don't think. I might be wrong, they know. That's, again, I can't tell you how labor intensive that is and how resource exhausting that is to be able to do that.
Is that an expense to the health department or to the schools?
Well, it's between the both of us right now, but the schools are primarily doing that right now because we've had to shift our focus on vaccines. So when we have positives come in that we know are a part of schools, we report that to the schools, and likewise vice versa. We have to, law says we do. They have to tell us and we have to tell them who's a positive case. But then we have to start looking at who was that positive case around and for how long within 6 feet. And it's a cumulative 15 minutes. It's not just one time. It's for the whole day. Were they within 6 feet of a person all day long for 15 minutes? So it's very complicated to do. But we can sit down and look at it. We can all sit down and try and figure it out.
I would like to see us do that.
Okay. Are you willing to put some money into it if you need to for schools?
If it gets our kids back in school and keeps them staying there, I think this board would look at helping out with that.
Okay. The other thing I will throw out there, it's kind of hard to find people right now to work, believe it or not. We've had a nurse, we've been needing a communicable disease nurse now for quite a while and have not found one. So that's been a vacancy now probably since, I don't know, October, November. Don't have one yet.
Is there CARES Act money that would help pay for that?
Depends, on what we hire and yeah, it would pay for that. Just got to hire them.
But what you're saying is you can't find one.
I can't find a communicable disease nurse right now. Been looking for one since October.
I have a question, but this is not, but I want you to finish this straight on the contact tracers. So,
Well, I would think it's covered by CARES Act money. We still have some.
We can, towards that,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't see that being a block. I don't see that being a hindrance to whatever way we can use it to get them in the class and keep them there. And if, again, the social distancing thing, again, I don't know, that the kid at the back of the room has to stay home for 2 weeks because somebody on the front row, that's an exaggeration, but because the kid on the front row is tested positive or he's been exposed.
So what do we do when we don't send a child home in the back of the classroom and they get sick and the parents say it's because you didn't send my child home because there was a positive case in that class? So, there's two sides to that coin you have to look at.
Like I said, I think the tracking thing can be
help a lot, yeah. course, that's a lot of math. I mean, between the two systems, I mean, I'm sure like a handful of 5 tracers is not going to help much. I mean, between you two.
No.
But I'm sure there's some math that you could figure out, like how big of a team would we need to help both systems? Because, I mean, combined, it's a lot of schools. But still, you know.
Early on, we had a team, we had trackers.
We do.
That was their profession. Are they still at work?
Yeah, they're handling all these cases we get, yeah.
But the workload's bigger than they are. We've had trackers.
Yeah.
The other issue, if I have understood it from our educators, is staff getting it. And when your staff gets it, when it gets started in a school, then your staff is sharing common spaces, and so when your staff goes down, then you don't have enough people, to teach.
Have a class.
So that is a big issue. I mean, they're finding, research is showing everywhere, even in hospitals, that a large number of the staff that gets COVID gets it from other workers. They do not get it from patients that have COVID. The greater percentage is getting it from other workers, where they change in and out of PPE in a common space, where they, take breaks together, they lunch together, they go in and out of the hospital together. They don't have symptoms, don't know they have it, they're spreading it. It is just such a highly communicable disease.
Yeah, and the variants, the UK variant is even more highly communicable, so that is another, something to think about.
When would, and I've heard some information about on adolescents, have vaccines for adolescents and children, so that we wouldn't, I'm looking at the point where we don't have to do any contact tracing because is that going to be September?
According to Dr. Fauci, he said on something I watched this weekend that they were hopeful that they would have in adolescents a vaccine available by the fall. And what they do is, they start at the higher ages, and if they do well, then they go down to another age. And if they do well, they keep going down until they get vaccine available for all ages. But that will probably take another year till it gets down to my granddaughter, who's 2, her age. But he did say hopeful by fall we would have it available for adolescents, for teens.
I'd like to remind everybody that unless it becomes required, then there are people from all walks of life that opt out. So my mother is she's in what do you call it?
Memory care, long-term care
Yes,
facility.
yes, she's in a memory care facility. And so they have been shut down. We've been visiting her through a window since back in November, early November. And so they had been clear, the vaccine has come out. So you would think your workers would get it. A lot of people have already had it. So we get to go in and see her one time about 3 weeks ago. So we get to go in, we sit across the table. It was just really good to have that personal, contact with her, and to at least be able to have that conversation. And the following day we get a phone call and they're shut down again, and it's because one worker.
So one staff member became positive?
One staff member. So that staff member had not had a vaccine. So I get people opting out, that's all right, but you sure are taking a lot away from children if you're those educators or workers in schools that don't get it, if you are working in those, facilities like that, then none of us get to see our parents again for another 28 days. So, and then who knows if somebody else will have it by then or not. So it's a very complicated issue, and so it's not just about one thing. It's not just about contact tracing. It's also about keeping your workers there. It's about having people that are willing to be vaccinated if you work in those settings, even if you're not thrilled about the idea, but doing it for the greater good for all of these, to be able to continue to provide these services for people. So it's a very complicated issue.
It is.
I don't have the answers. I will say that you mentioned the 90-day period. My son had it back in March of last year. He had traveled, and so just as everything was shutting down, he returned from his travels and realized he couldn't smell. So sure enough, he tested positive. Well, he was part of a study that tested his antibodies every single month. So it was September when he first tested with no antibodies.
Huh.
So that was 6 months.
And I think that's what the data is showing, 6 months, and there have been studies that showed even as long as 8 months they were seeing antibodies.
Okay,
In
and
some
one more
cases.
question, because people ask me this, and I've heard different things. What is the recommendation for getting the vaccine for that person who has had COVID recently?
The recommendation is once you are free of your symptoms and you've been released, you're fine, you're better, past that sick period or that 10 days, then you can get the vaccine.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Well, I just kind of wanted to, back to Daryl's scenario, Mr. Chairman Fry's scenario, excuse me, about the schools and everything, just kind of, because I get a lot of calls and talk to a lot of folks, really in one group more than the other, because of where I live. But so, like in his scenario, like with this tracing, you're talking about everything. So, the kid in the front of the room is exposed. And in his scenario, we're worried about the kid, however many rows back in the back of the room. Now, currently, once this kid's exposed, do we send the whole class of 20 home, or what do we do?
Yeah, I think we do, but let me point this out. When somebody's, first of all, most of the time when we have positives, it's staff, it's not children.
Okay, all right.
And what you have to understand is it's dependent on the air exchange, it's dependent on, is the person coughing, it's dependent on the kind of symptoms people are having. How big is the room? Is everybody on top of each other? Again, it is an extremely complicated thing. It's not a simple, yeah, you're in the back of the room, you're good. I wish it were that easy and that simple, but it isn't. That's what's so frustrating about it for everybody.
Well, it sounds like it's just constantly a moving target. I'm not.
It's what, a moving target?
Just like the scenario we're talking about,
It depends if the
Johnny
room,
tests positive, or
yeah.
whoever the teacher is tests positive.
Was that person coughing? Were they in the room all day? Did they spend 6 hours in the room and that person had a cough? Did they have fever while they were in there?
How are we determining all those things?
That's
school
the
system's
thing.
responsible for?
That's where all that comes into. You've got to talk to people and manage that case. And unless you have the resources to do all that, then sending folks home to make sure they're safe is the best option.
So we err way on that side of.
We are erring on the side of caution. Because what I don't want to have happen is somebody to come back to me and say, why didn't you make them send everybody home and quarantine? Because now my child's in the hospital with
So in all this tracing and information, the exchange of information, from your scenario where, you're saying, well, Daryl's got his buddy in the front of the room and tested positive, and we err on the side of caution and send everybody home. And you're saying, well, I'd rather do that for my kid because I wouldn't want to call you back and go, hey, my kid got sick. Do we call the parents of all those kids and say, you have the option of, here's the deal. We had a kid in the front of the room test positive, and,
That's a question you'll have to ask Dr. Gainey and Dr. Woody. That's a school question. You're asking me things that I can't really answer for them.
Well, but they get the health issues from, and I know one of the things they're going to ask us, the same thing you ask about the trackers, but if it's the teacher, can't we put a substitute teacher in that classroom?
How many substitutes do you think want to work these days?
I know that.
Yeah,
I'm on the
exactly.
sub
They do,
list.
and they do have,
Don't call
my
me.
daughter taught classes with 32 kids in it, so I know they have 30.
I'm willing to sit down and talk with y'all anytime if you want to try to figure this out. But I think what you don't understand is how complicated it is. And on the surface, it looks like, yeah, we ought to be able to just do this, do this, do this. It's not like that. But if y'all want to sit down with us, I think it would be good. And if Dr. Gainey and Dr. Woody are interested in us sitting down and trying to work something out, let me know. I don't think we're going to solve that problem tonight.
Right, no.
Well, I agree, an open dialogue and having everybody at the table is certainly a good idea. And just in talking to teachers here and principals there and administrators here, it does seem like, and this very much dumbs it down, so I apologize. It's just like there's not a template. It's just a moving target.
It can't be.
Exactly, there's
That's
not.
the problem. It can't be.
There's not.
Well,
Have you not seen what a crazy disease this is?
I do see private schools all over the area doing fine with it.
And they're small. There you go.
Well, they're not any,
They don't have
I disagree on that.
16,000 kids.
I disagree on that.
Which one's that
Well,
big?
okay, I'll take one Randolph County Faith Christian School.
Yeah, we've worked with them
And
extensively.
they're doing a great job. I know you've worked wonderfully, and I commend you with that. Are you going to say that they're smaller than our school system?
Faith Christian is not
I'm
smaller
asking.
than Randolph County schools?
I'm asking.
You mean class size?
I'm asking. I'm just asking. Is Faith Christian
There's not
smaller?
as many students that go there,
Okay,
no.
all right. But it's not any smaller because, let's take Ashburn City School System because I'm real familiar with that. Certainly, Ashburn City is how big? 4,500? Yeah. 4,500 kids. Faith Christian is nowhere near that, but Ashburn City's individual buildings are the same size as Faith Christian. Lindley Park's as big as Faith Christian. Donnelly Laughlin's as big as Faith
Again, I think this is something we need to sit down and talk
the
about.
okay, I'm just saying,
I can't answer your question, Commissioner
But now
Kidd.
back
I
to the
would
tracer thing real quick.
love to, but I can't.
Wait a minute. We're tying up a lot of time here on something that we can't do anything with tonight. I think if you want to continue the line of discussion, the better thing to do would be to have Ms. Hayes to sit down and have the superintendents to come up and talk about how decisions are made and what the impact is on them, their staff, their students.
okay.
That's
I
exactly.
think that makes a lot more
That's
sense
exactly what we do.
than
We're
having
just trying
her
get
to.
some issues fixed in our mind of what the issues are, so we can address them.
Well, they can tell you more about their situation than I
Because they
can.
know. They know what their experience is.
So do they need tracers?
Well, ask them right there, they said.
Well, Dr. Woody, you go first. Is that okay? Do you need tracers?
Again, it's a complicated question. My short answer right away is no, we're managing with that. The person that does that in our district is, and it's a little different from the county. I know Dr. Gainey, I think, does that, by himself. I think he does a lot of that work,
He's got 4 times more kids.
Yeah, right, and there's just a lot there. So in our district, Carla Freemeyer does that, and Tara, who's sitting over here, has been fantastic to work with. Tara Aker, she communicates. We communicate almost daily, and we keep a lengthy spreadsheet, and we try to take guidance from our nurses, from Tara, Carla, and our other folks. So we've tried to. I don't know what the right term is. I'd say we have probably responded conservatively. We've certainly, when we have an issue, and I agree with Susan as well, the cases have overwhelmingly been adults. They've been our teachers, bus drivers. So we look at those situations and we say, well, this adult was in contact with this adult, but not sure how long, and the distancing and so forth. So we run those things through our group. So at least from my standpoint, I don't know that and I'm not going to say no to any extra help, but I don't know that we're at that point right now I think we're navigating it fine. We're hopeful for the future. And Chairman Fry, just for a quick second, just in terms of the legislation, whether that's and Dr. Gainey, I know will want to speak to this as well, but whether that is the legislators override that veto or not, it doesn't actually affect us very much in Asheboro City Schools because we have been back to school. What we're currently doing is trying to bring that number further up. So currently at our elementary schools, we're almost there to having 100%. And when I say 100%, across our district, we have 1,400 students that are in a remote learning plan, and they're not necessarily going to come back to school right now. And part of that are elementary schools. So we've worked really hard to be very similar to the county, to have our elementary students back at full capacity. In middle school and high schools, we're working on a cohort A, cohort B plan, and we have been since the first part of October, latter part of September. So we have students coming Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday, very similar again to what other districts are doing. The challenge is with the legislation is that the guidance from the CDC still talks about 6 feet of social distancing. The World Health Organization is talking about 3 feet. So there's some disparity there.
Exactly.
And so until we have very clear direction with the CDC, it almost feels contradictory with any kind of law the state of North Carolina would move forward. And in my humble opinion, and this probably isn't the venue to do it, but I'll just share with you, and I think Ms. Haywood brought this up, the initial law and the initial announcement from the governor, I think, was directed towards around 25 school districts that had done very little to move out of Plan C. Here in Randolph County, we're not that place. I commend the district. I commend Dr. Gainey and Randolph County and what they have done. I'm certainly proud of what we have done, and we've had devices. All of our students have devices. I think, Mr. Allen, you brought this up a minute ago, and I will sit down here in just a second. When we have a teacher out who's on quarantine, we do provide a sub when we can. If we can't, we utilize teacher assistants. We can move students around, and that teacher can still deliver instruction remotely. So it's a little unconventional. You have students in a classroom and students at home and a teacher at home, and that environment is being taught remotely from the teacher while having an adult there to help facilitate. So we're working it out. I feel, it's not ideal. We've learned a lot. We're learning a lot about COVID. There's a lot that we don't know. But in terms of delivering instruction and supporting students, we feel like we're doing a very good job. It's not ideal. It's not as good as students being face-to-face. But this, irrespective of where we go from COVID, this is my belief again, and I'll just invite Dr. Gainey to come up and maybe save the day. This isn't going to go away. We've opened the box to families, so remote learning is going to be a part of our instructional delivery from here on to some level, because we want to capture families. We want to keep families in our schools. We want to keep families in our district. We want to give families options. First and foremost, we want to be about safety, we want to utilize data, and we want to be about values. And that's really what we've been trying to do in Asheboro City Schools. And I think the county has taken a little different approach, and I think it's been fantastic. So Dr. Gainey and I communicate many times daily. We certainly meet together weekly, and we try to stay in collaboration. But speaking again for Asheboro, to answer the question directly, at this time, I don't know that we necessarily need an additional staff member to contact Trace. We wouldn't say no to it. Okay, thank you.
But the issue is the 3 feet or 6 feet. I mean, you're right. There's a lot of issues. Susan gets, we get different answers to the same question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it's really complicated. We want to bring more students back, but then we start, and we are following all of our protocols and processes and procedures. Dr. Gainey and I have talked at length, too, about we're getting the opportunity this week to open up some of our athletic venues, and we want to have clear protocols and process to invite more families and more spectators, but we want to be really clear about how that works. So we want to follow the rules, but we also recognize we want to get more and more and I'm not going to speak for Dr. Kennedy, but I believe it's the same. We want more and more students to be in our buildings face-to-face who want that option. But we want to do it according to the guidelines that were provided.
Yeah. We'll let Dr. Gainey speak, and then we're going to end. But I think, unless Dr. Gainey throws a wrench in this whole thing, we all want the same thing.
Yeah, and I can speak about it anytime, any day, because I've lived this from day one, personally. We opened on August 17. We were one of the few school systems in North Carolina that opened the doors to students in-person learning. We got handed the responsibility at the beginning of June as the employer to contact trace. That was the first time. Up until that point, Ms. Hayes and her staff were contacting us when there was a positive, and of course it was mainly staff then, because up until that point we had not been back in school. So what do we do when we have a positive? We first identify everybody that's an exposure. We talk a great deal with Ms. Hayes. She has taught us well throughout this time. We call every parent of every child who's a direct exposure. I give my principal a script with a return date for those exposures. If you look at the rules from the CDC and from DHHS, yes, the positive does come back early. They come back after 10 days. The exposure comes back after 14 days because of the incubation period for this disease. And I would concur with Ms. Hayes that I have seen people turn up positive on day 12, 13, and 14 and seen no sign up until then. Wondered why we had put them out. We did not suspend anybody, nor do we suspend anybody. They're put on remote instruction. They're on remote instruction. The issue is substitutes. We can't find substitutes. We offer substitutes, but many times we can't find substitutes. The very first exposure cases in the Randolph County school system were on August 24th at Trinity High School and Providence Grove High School. That night I chose to work with the schools individually, and I realized when I went to bed that night I left two principals hanging out to dry a little bit. Next morning, I emailed the staff directly because it was all over the internet. From that point forward, our process has been this. When we have a positive that has been on campus, we have a 48-hour look-back period. That person's symptoms, did they connect to campus? If they didn't have symptoms, we go to their test date. We look back 48 hours. Were they on our campus at that period of time? When we have a positive, we first call every person who's an exposure, staff or student, and give them their return date. Next, I email the staff of the school myself to make them aware there was a positive that hit the campus. Some positives don't hit the campus because the 48-hour window, they're not in that 48-hour window. And then we give the principal, I write a voicemail for my principal to send to their community to make the community aware we had a positive on the campus. The problem's not the process. The problem is the contact tracing rules that we are being held to. And until they change, we will continue to battle this the very best we can in all school systems across this state and this country. We are bound by that. I don't have the flexibility to go against the DHSS requirements. If I do, then I take on liability not only for Randolph County school system, but liability for myself. And the last thing I want to know is that a kid was overlooked or a staff member was overlooked and they pass away because of this pandemic. One of my rules has been with my principals, we'll call. A couple weekends ago, we were calling elementary school up until 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. Some nights we can't get the community call out because our system times you out. But I do push my principals to call the individuals who are direct exposures because I can't live with a child laying in bed and start sweating and mom and dad not aware of whether or not they have a fever because of COVID or what it might be. Or a kid who starts coughing and mom and dad not know that they were a direct exposure. So I have lived this, and I will continue to live this because I was hired in this county to have school as much as we possibly can. It is unfortunate. The story you heard tonight, there's probably other stories. I have the data. I've been following this. Our numbers have looked better the last couple of weeks, but I don't know where they're going to go. We're going to keep working at it. I was one of the ones who pushed for athletics to be pushed open and open these facilities. We were one of the systems that opened athletic workouts. We were the first time we were eligible to do it, June 15. I called the athletic directors and the principals together, and I said, we're going to show our community we can get back to school. We can have some normalcy. We have pushed for normalcy the entire time, every time we could do this. But the issue now, you asked about the Senate Bill 37. The issue will be, and I have raised this question multiple times in the past few weeks. Yes, I want all the kids back to school, but I don't know that we can all come back to school with the same contact tracing rules that are in place. And I told you that the other day, Ms. Haywood. It's going to be, and if that's what, we will certainly try it. We will certainly try it.
And that's DHHS.
But there's going to be, it's coming through DHHS and CDC. You're hearing the 3 feet, you're hearing the 6 feet. But we have lived this. We do have a contact tracing team. We put one together about the 5th week. The first 5 weeks, it was the principals and me. Because, you know, one of the things you've heard me say, central service staffing has been cut continuously in this state for the last 15 years. Well, that's not a good scenario when a pandemic hits. You can't put any more on the schools. We did put together a little bit of a team. I have 3 staff members. They take 10 schools apart apiece. I do all contact tracing after hours. Once 5 o'clock hits, all through the night I do it, and I do it on weekends. There have been weekends when I have talked to 19 different principals. There was a weekend, a couple weekends ago, 19 different principals on Saturday and 22 different principals on Sunday. And some of those I talked to multiple times. So I don't know what else we do other than keep battling. I was criticized earlier in the year when I was quoted as saying, we're going to do whatever it takes. And someone said, don't you have a better comment than that? No, that's how I was raised. That's exactly how I was raised. My job is to keep school in session the best it can. And the first group that got hit with an exposure and closure was on the Sunday. If you look back on August 30th, we shut Trinity High School down. And that community, we told our communities, if we had to go down for 14 days on remote instruction, we would, and we'd come back and try it again. And they handled that, and they set the tone for our communities, for our county school system. They handled that. They weren't ready. They didn't want to be shut down to 14 days remote that for 1 week, 1 or 2 weeks into it. But they handled it, and they sent me the message that this is what you told me you were going to do, and we're going to come back. We went into this winter break at December. I think it was 9 schools were on remote instruction. We kept battling it. And we had a tough week the first week back from the holidays. So I'll answer any questions you have. But I think we've got a process that has stood the test of time.
All right, I think we've had good discussion and good responses tonight. And I know that Dr. Gainey, Dr. Woody, y'all didn't come here expecting to be on our agenda, but I'm glad you are, glad you have been. And clarification there, and I hope you're working, and we will, with our state representatives, that maybe that bill can be cleaned up a little bit if it's when they override the veto, or make some changes that would make it a little more acceptable.
Well, and I know I'm in a public venue, so I'll say it. There's a bill out there about mandatory summer school. My teachers are tired. My staff's tired. A mandatory summer school? That's going to be tough. We'll do what we're required to do by the law. But I've also asked why mandatory summer school, why not start a little bit earlier? My staff's tired. My principals are worn out. My assistant principals are worn out. My central service staff is worn out, and my teachers are worn out, and every bit of support staff's worn out. But what they keep doing every day, what I'm so proud of, is they've never lost focus of why they got in this business, and it was about children. So I'm sorry that there's a situation out there, as Mr. Bari, I think it was, mentioned. I know of that situation. I knew about that. And I'm sorry that's happened. I've got 2 kids in the system too, and they've experienced the same thing everybody else's kids have experienced as well. So one of mine goes back to school for his in-person on Thursday for the first time in 2 weeks. So,
Well, I've been proud of Randolph, and I think we need to mention our teachers. I know there's some issues there, some who don't want to be in the class, but for the most part, our teachers want to teach.
Well,
And they want to be in the classroom.
You got to respect everybody was nervous or some people were nervous, and I respect that, just like I respect whoever does or doesn't want to take the shot. I'm going to respect that. That's an individual decision, and we're going to move on. We're going to keep pushing out the resources. Ms. Hayes has been sharing them, Randolph Hospital's been sharing them, Mercy Clinic's been sharing, and we're going to keep pushing it out for anybody who wants it. You know, some days when I think deep down, this is the guy I worry about. I mean, think about his first year as a superintendency, and he doesn't even get through that first year before he gets into the middle of a pandemic. So that's another whole story in itself right there. So,
All right. Thank all of you. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you
Thank you,
both.
Dr. Woody. Thank you, Dr. Gainey. Thank you. Okay. Tracy, new social worker sign-in bonus.
Good evening, everyone. We have talked about some very sobering topics tonight. I sat in my seat and I've listened. We've talked about substance abuse issues and a pandemic and so many things, but one thing that I can say about our leaders is when it comes right down to it, we are all united in a purpose. And I love to be part of this team that's all united in a purpose. This evening, I am going to be before you just for a few minutes. I have a request. I've heard many of my other colleagues talk about how difficult it is to find, recruit, and retain staff, and Department of Social Services is also suffering from that same malady. In my responsibility, have to think up everything that I can and be creative in problem solving, and that is what I'm doing here today. I appreciate the commissioners approving a retention bonus not too long ago. This is another tool in order for us to recruit and retain good professional social workers. We are competing with other counties, with other agencies who have less stressful jobs. I've never seen a time like this. All of the challenges that we have in our community truly are exacerbated. We talked about substance abuse, and one thing we didn't mention is I heard a gentleman talk about how the numbers of people who have died from overdose has gone up. The number of suicides in our children has gone up. The amount of violence against our children that my social workers see, it's worse than it's been. And I'm before you this evening asking not for money, but for some latitude. Allow us to pay the social workers a sign-on bonus so that will assist us with having a better candidate pipeline to choose from and allow us to continue to support the vulnerable children in our community. In front of you, you have what our proposal is. I am available to answer any questions that you have.
So 44% of your positions are vacant?
That's
Almost half of
correct. Yes. It's very difficult for us to protect children. I saw both superintendents here tonight. They are usually our #1 reporter, and I support everyone when I say that they are doing a fabulous job in the schools with trying to protect our children and staying in contact with us.
Do you think this is going to get any better even post-pandemic as far as the number of I don't want to say qualified, but good candidates? Is this something that, I guess what I'm asking, is this going to be a permanent, you see this being a permanent, I don't say solution, but a permanent try?
I don't have any way of telling whether or not it's going to be something that we need far into the future, but I can tell you that right now, with almost half of our social work positions vacant, we're going to need it, and it takes us a long time to hire and train qualified social workers. So this is certainly not something I'm just going to need for 3 months or 6 months or even 12 months. That's not going to solve our challenges.
Another issue's come up already tonight. Is there a available workforce out there?
We're not seeing them. I hope that this sign-on bonus will make us, make those applicants look at us instead of looking at our neighboring counties, Guilford, Alamance, Rockingham. I hope this will put us in the spotlight and allow us to have more attention from those social workers who are looking to be employed with Department of Social Services. It's a hard job, not just during the pandemic, but all the time. It's a hard job. Go into homes where things are very uncertain there. You're not sure if the historian is giving you accurate information about what's in the home. You are dealing with bed bugs and with animal feces and with human feces. You're dealing with rodents in the home and food insecurity. So it's not a glamorous job. It's a hard job, but I don't know where our community would be without those hardworking social workers that are willing to do this work during the pandemic and out of it.
And it's not a job you can do virtually.
It is not a job you can do
go
virtually.
in that home where the feces and the rodents are, and they do their job every day.
Where COVID is. So COVID has really affected our ability to have staff on hand, and having to send staff home for 10, 14 days. That's been an ongoing thing with us. So if we only have half of the social workers working, and then we have to have half of them at home because they're home for 14 or 10 days, it really doesn't, saying that we only have half there is not painting a clear picture of what is going on.
And I think you came to the retreat Thursday. I don't know how long you were there, but these child issues are only getting worse.
They're only getting worse.
More borders open.
I think what we discussed at the retreat, we talked about human trafficking case that everybody believes is a Davidson County case. Well, that's a Randolph County kid. That's our kid. So those issues that are happening continue.
Girl in Arkansas lived in Randolph County.
Mr. Chairman, not to cut it short, but to cut to the chase. We need to do this.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion. We must do this.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those further discussion or question? Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And it's approved.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
just say, you've kept I don't know what happens when you get in the car and maybe scream or something. You've had a very good demeanor and cooperative approach to this past year.
Thank you.
And all that's involved. And like I said, it's the one job in the county that it makes no difference if it's COVID or anything. It's every day. People don't realize how much of a problem Child Protective Services is.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, but I cannot take credit. I have a fabulous staff who work so hard, and I am happy to represent them and support them.
I might say, as being the liaison from this board on your board, it comes from the top. You've got a good group. They do have a good group up there of people and personnel, but it comes from the top.
Thank you.
They get their guidance from you.
Thank you very much.
Kevin, we're finally to you, buddy.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thanks for the opportunity to be here. We've had a long discussion about COVID, and certainly our industry across the county has not been immune to that. However, I'm very happy to say that many of our businesses across the county are continuing to grow, and so tonight we're talking about one of those businesses in Randolph County. It's Lancaster Custom Crafted Upholstery, and I do want to mention, first of all, that Bill Lancaster is here. He's the president and founder of that company. And we also have Louis Dorset in the room, and Louis is a council member from the city of Archdale who has already held their public hearing and approved for their part, subject to the county's action.
Louis, when we got to this item, I wasn't slighting him, but he's been here too many times.
That's right.
He's a familiar face.
That's right. That's right. But I did want to make sure that I recognized him as well. So just some background, and I know that you all have this information in front of you, but Lancaster's a high-end upholstery manufacturer currently located in an 18,000 square foot facility in Archdale. The company's been around a while, well over 30 years, have enjoyed multiple recent consecutive years of double-digit growth. So again, their growth has been very strong and continues to strengthen during the pandemic even now. There is no room at their current facility in order to expand. They're constrained by the piece of land on which that building sits, and there is need for additional space. So they're looking at constructing up to 55,000 square feet and want to have room for even the potential of future expansion beyond that. Mr. Lancaster is looking at, and has been looking at, we've been talking for probably the last 6 months or so, multiple locations that would be suitable for the expansion of his business. He's had several viable opportunities. He's really narrowed the top 2 down to one piece of land in Archdale, and it's a piece of land that actually has been on our inventory for a number of years. He's also looking at another piece of property that is in High Point, Guilford County. If the Archdale facility or the Archdale site is selected, the full investment in the project is anticipated to be about $3.5 million, including $2.75 in real property, $290,000 in new machinery and equipment, and of course the balance then would be in the property acquisition. The company would retain their current workforce, which is around 20 jobs, and they have plans to create at least 20 new jobs over a 5-year period. In fact, the information that I received from Mr. Lancaster shows really projections of upwards of 30 new jobs, but conservatively for these purposes, and we're going to keep it at 20 new jobs over a 5-year period. The average annual wage of these new jobs will be around $46,000, and so those are definitely good-paying furniture jobs, and they are high-skilled, high-quality furniture jobs. The average Randolph County private sector wage right now is a little over $37,000, almost $38,000, so significantly above. Mr. Lancaster has requested consideration of local incentives from both Archdale and Randolph County to aid in his decision, and really, a big driver in that is the piece of property he's looking at in High Point is significantly less expensive than the piece of property in the city of Archdale, so that would help to offset his cost in that process. So tonight, we're asking for consideration of the county participating in a total $66,500 incentive request, with $45,500 being from Randolph County, $21,000 from the city of Archdale. And for those that are here and maybe watching, the differential there is the difference in the tax rates between the city of Archdale and Randolph County. So we believe that this is really a great economic development project. It promotes retention of jobs here in Randolph County. It tells an existing business here in Randolph County that we want to keep them here. And it's high-quality new jobs as well as new taxable investment in Archdale and Randolph County. So we would request your approval, and happy to answer any questions. And of course, again, Mr. Lancaster will be here to answer any questions that you may have about the project.
All right, we had a narrative in our agenda books. Does anybody have a question of Kevin? All right. We will open the public hearing, and then, Bill, I'll let you, after we open the public hearing. We're going to have a public hearing for consideration of the incentives for Lancaster Furniture, Lancaster Custom Works, and we'll let you speak now.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you to Kevin for his help. Like I said, we've been working together for about 6 months now, and thank you to the board for your consideration, for your time this evening. We have been a part of the community for 24 years, and we would like to continue to be a part of Randolph County. We're happy to be here. Our employee base, over 50% of our employees are residents of Randolph County, and we appreciate your time and your consideration.
I know some folks that have your furniture.
Do you?
They love it.
Oh, thank you. So we've been in business. I started the business 35 years ago. My grandfather and great-grandfather were in the case good side of the business, so I had a little bit of knowledge. And after graduating from college, I moved to Guilford County and went to Guilford Tech in furniture design, and that's where I got my knowledge and built the business from there.
And you do it all to custom orders?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep. That's great. That's right across the street from where I was raised.
Oh, really?
The house up at the stoplight, the White House.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I used to swim in that creek down there. It's on your property.
The house is still there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very valuable piece of property, that house.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions, Mr. Lancaster? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else here tonight who wishes to speak to this request? For or against? And hearing none, we will close the public hearing, and we'll come back into regular session. And for consideration of the resolution that is in your agenda packet, resolution authorizing the county of Randolph to enter into an economic development incentive contract. I will, since this is my area, I will make a motion that we approve the incentives and adopt the resolution. Second. Thank you. Further discussion or questions? See, Lewis, have y'all acted yet? You did that, wasn't it? Yeah, thought so. All right. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And I'm glad you're staying in the county.
Yes.
I hope this does it.
Yes, but
All right.
we would love to. Thank you for your
Thank you very
time.
much.
Thank you for the consideration.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. The limited obligation bonds. Will? Asheboro High School and Randolph County Detention Center.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. I just want to take a quick minute or so and talk about our debt capacity or load and the affordability of the proposed financing. As of this June, what we have budgeted in debt service will bring us down to about $108 million, about 109. You see the breakdown there. It's all bricks and mortar. As you all know, we do not borrow money for operations. Just a quick graph of this is before any new additional debt, but you see how quickly it drops off. We started this fiscal year at 117, we're at 108 at the end of this fiscal year. We're down to 70 in a few years. So it's our policy to pay things off. We usually borrow money at 20 years and pay aggressively to get that down. So as you recall, our capital improvement plan had some priority financings. We've already been through a number. In 2018, we did Asheboro High School addition. In 2019, we have the county schools and the detention center additions. And then 2021, what we're proposing tonight is to finish out 2 renovation projects, the Asheboro High School and the detention center. So a not to exceed of about $39 million. This graph shows what the debt service is expected to be. You'll notice on the 2021-22, that's the big year where a lot of the past debt, you start to pay that principal down, and the new debt has interest. This is why we've saved money in our capital reserve to be able to handle the next couple of years. You see the final column, the proposed payout. Good debt management would say that you will have your debt paid off at least 50% within the next 10 years. And we're paying 61%. So we can say that we have this designed to where it's affordable and manageable. So we have a debt policy, and our affordability has 3 main benchmarks: debt per capita, debt as a percentage of assessed valuation, and debt service as percentage of the budget. So let's go quickly on these. We have a target debt per capita of try to be below 1,000 with a ceiling of 1,200. We currently are at 971. Average for counties would be 1,269. So even with this debt, it's going to be quite a bit lower than what the state average is. This graph, you can see how quickly it would drop off over the next few years.
Well, none of these numbers considers what might take place with the hospital.
That is correct. Debt as a percentage of assessed property valuation. North Carolina general statutes allow you to go up to 8%. Nobody can go up to 8% of your total value. Our target is between 1.3 and 1.5. Our actual percentage would be about 1.2, which is about the average for counties, so still comparable. Again, a graph, you see how it will start to drop over the next few years. And finally, debt service is a percentage of our operational budget. Without any new debt, we were about 9.5% this year. The projected after we add this debt will be about 12.62%, so still below the 15%. So here this graph shows where it jumps up, and then in the absence of any new debt over this time period, we'll be able to pay this down. And an important part of our plan was how we funded the debt service. The general fund, we transferred over $6.3 million. We used some of that for pay-as-you-go Northgate, so we put it back by using landfill lease money. We plan to use about $12 million of the Article 46 over the next 5 years, and the plan was to not raise taxes to do that. And so this plan does not put any pressure on our property tax rate.
Any questions of Will? I think we saw some of this Thursday. Okay, we have a public hearing for the limited obligation bonds for Asheboro High School and the detention center. Amy Scotton's going to introduce that.
Yeah. Okay, so as you know, in 2018, the county entered into an installment financing arrangement to finance the costs of expanding, renovating, equipping, and improving Asheboro High School. And in order to facilitate that, the Asheboro City School Board conveyed ownership of the high school to the county to be used as collateral, and limited obligation bonds were issued in the amount of $17,235,000. The public hearing tonight is to consider whether to approve an installment financing arrangement to obtain financing through the sale of additional limited obligation bonds under the original trust agreement and using the original collateral in an amount not to exceed $39 million additional for the further renovation, equipment, and improvement of existing facilities at Asheboro High School and for the expansion of the Randolph County Detention Center. At the close of the public hearing, if you wish to proceed with this financing arrangement, you would need to adopt the resolution in your packet. That resolution authorizes and approves the installment financing arrangement and authorizes the execution and delivery of the next necessary documents. So, if you have any questions for me, ask Will.
Okay, we open the public hearing. Is there anyone here tonight who wishes to speak to the issue of limited obligation bonds, or LOBs, installment financing for the Randolph County Detention Center and the renovations at Asheboro High School? Anyone who wishes to speak or ask a question tonight? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing, and we will ask the board for your directions.
Will did a great job of explaining most of this to us at the, like you said, at the retreat, and again tonight for the public. And so, and I guess since the public hearing's over, I guess Major Cheek or Dr. Woody don't have any comments on either side. So anyway, but no, both of these kind of do fall in, especially the high school. So I would like to make a motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the installment financing. And I guess we need to also include the execution and delivery of documents.
The resolution authorizing the execution and delivery by Randolph County Public Facilities Corporation of limited obligation bonds payable from the certain installment payments to be made by the County of Randolph, North Carolina, approving documents relating thereto, and authorizing certain actions in connection therewith. That is your motion.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
I take Ms. Haywood for that since she's close here. So, further discussion or question?
That was
It's a tie. Ladies first.
fine.
All right. Any other questions? Those in favor will say aye. Opposed, no, and it's approved. Thank you. Thank all of you. All right.
Thank you, Amy.
The courthouse renovation bid. Paxton?
All right. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. I'll give you present the bids for the courthouse renovation first. Real quick, go over a quick overview of the project. This is interior renovation of the second floor of the courthouse. It's a little over 18,000 square feet. Because the space is occupied, it's being broke up into 5 phases. And the designers estimate about a year of construction, but once we get a contractor on board, we'll refine that and probably come in lower. We issued a request for bids on January 5th and ended up opening the bids last Thursday. We received 6 bids, and the prices varied some, but the lowest 3 were all within 5.5% approximately, so it was pretty competitive. Here are the results of the bid tabulation. As you can see, the low bid went to Lomax Construction. Their base bid was $1,225,200. Alternate 1, that is for coordination of demountable walls. And basically, these are like modular walls that are like prefab. The floor and ceiling are already in place when they go down. They're quicker, and they actually are more flexible in the future. If we wanted to, we could actually rework them in the future. So in order to get state contract pricing, we're purchasing those from a different vendor. And so because there are electrical and data involved, there's some coordination required from the contractor. So that $6,000 is for that coordination. Alternate 2 is $45,000, and that is for upgrading the transaction counter to give it a bulletproof or bullet-resistant rating. Nothing bulletproof, but it will have a rating. All those combined come to a total of $1,276,200. This is a slide from a presentation that was done back in January where they had estimated a probable cost. And you see they were, at that time, they were predicting around $2,587,000.
So
However, that is total cost. That is not the construction bid.
Okay.
So I've got this next slide to sort of give you a updated budget. As you can see, the top are the construction costs from Lomax Construction that I just went over. Below that are soft costs. We have design fees, furniture, the demountable walls that I mentioned, also some high-density filing. There is a security and technology fee for upgrading, the overall building, not just that area. And also we have a reserve, which is an additional contingency. So all of that combined comes to $2,241,629.
So we finally got a bid that came in under our estimate.
Finally. We talked about it last week, so luckily it actually came down.
Double this time, so.
Yeah, however, I will mention originally, several years ago, we had set a budget of $2 million. So it has gone up. However, it's about $350,000 below what the architect was anticipating several months ago. So I was happy with the results. The contractor is Lomax Construction. They are out of Colfax, above High Point. I have never dealt with them. However, our architects have. They worked with them on the Archdale Municipal Building. I called Zeb Holden and asked him about it, and he said they did not have any problems with the contractor, so that was positive. They also worked with them on a hospice home in Burlington, a bank in Winston-Salem, and several medical projects for UNC Health. And that's especially a good experience because similar to the courthouse, a lot of that took place in occupied buildings where they had to be really mindful of, not creating a bunch of noise and dust. So I think that's, I would recommend that we go with Lomax Construction. And the request is to award a contract to Lomax Construction in the amount of $1,276,200 for the renovation of the courthouse and to authorize the county manager to sign the contract. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I would say to the audience and to those that might be watching this on video, we've dealt with several projects here tonight. Some of these projects have been delayed, in the case of the Trinity Middle School, for about 20 years. Until this county, we got in a position where we retired our debt. We were able, as you saw on the screen a while ago, we were able to take on these projects one at a time and over 3 to 5 years and do that and fund the debt without a tax increase. So I appreciate those that have waited patiently, citizens and kids in school, and our Ashboro School, which is, 65 years old? And those renovations have been needed for a long time. The detention center was to comply with laws and regulations relative to separation of prisoners. So, but I just want to make that comment tonight about what we've handled here tonight, and it's been going on since about 2018. I think we saw one of the first screens a while ago. So just wanted to make those comments as we deal with this. And the Northgate Shopping Center helped us to be able to renovate the courthouse to take care of needed space up there. But it's all been a part of an overall plan. So the courthouse renovation bid update, there's a budget amendment that's included with this. I need a motion to approve the budget amendment and authorize the expenditure.
I'll make that motion to award the bid to Lomax Construction in the amount of $1,276,200 and approve the associated budget amendment for the courthouse renovation.
Thank you. Have a second? Second. There we go. Further discussion or questions? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And it's approved. Thank you, Paxton.
Thank you.
Okay, Will Gadsby.
We talked a little bit about this last week. There are some changes that are coming to our budget process. GASB 84 had to do with fiduciary funds. Some of the financial reporting that we did and treated them as trust and agency are now going to require us to budget and report them as special revenue funds. And these are the ones we talked about last week: Social Services Representative Payee Fund, Fines and Forfeitures, Deed of Trust. We're going to combine the Library Trust Fund and the Town Library into the Library Resources Fund, so that's a renaming. Then we'll just blend those two: School District Tax Fund and Tourism Development Fund. Of course, the TDA Board adopts the budget. Our fund would just kind of mirror what any changes that they might make. We'll pick those adjustments up the following month. So what's before you is the budget amendment to the ordinance that creates all these funds and the initial budgets, initial estimates.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'd like to make the motion to, what am I looking for? Motion to approve the budget amendments for the Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 84 for special revenue funds.
I'll second it. I was going to make the motion.
These are two accountants here.
They're excited about this. We're excited.
We're excited as Will is, I think. So.
I want to make this comment on this matter too, to everybody that's watching or listening. This is not new money. This is under the Government Accounting Standard Board directions. That's where GASB comes from. This is a restatement of existing budgeted numbers already. It's not anything new. We have to show it in a different version to meet these accounting standard board regulations. You probably heard of FASB. Well, this is GASB, so it's another government-directed issue that we have to do in separating or segregating certain aspects of the county budget. So these are existing numbers put in to their required statement form. Any other discussion or questions? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And it's approved.
I hope any of you that said the word Gatsby has a mint or something to get the bad taste out of your mouth.
Hal, do you have anything? Well, I kind of had my comments at the start of our meeting tonight relative to the past year. Does anybody, any other commissioner, have anything you want to say or add tonight? All right. We have a closed session. Let's ask Commissioner Allen if he would.
Make a motion to enter closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.1A4 to discuss matters relating to the location, expansion of industries, other business in the area served by the public body, including agreement on a tentative list of economic development incentives that may be offered by the public body and negotiations, and for the purpose of discussing competitive healthcare activities on or behalf of Randolph Health, which discussion is privileged and confidential pursuant to North Carolina General Statute Section 131E-97.3 as is permitted by North Carolina General Statute Section 143-318.A1, 11A1.
Take a breath.
Yeah.
Almost got to it before.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And to the public. And Kevin, Crystal, we're not expecting any action from our meeting on economic development. So, and the other part is relative to the hospital and an update on the legalities of that process in bankruptcy. So those in favor of closed session say aye. Aye. Those no. So there won't be any more business conducted by our county tonight when we come out of closed session. So thank all of you for attendance. And I know we had lengthy, I thought it was positive discussion. It was in helping us to answer questions that we get relative to this virus and who gets it and who doesn't, how long, those types of things. And I think you saw that there is a genuine concern and interest on this board, and I think our schools with us, that we get our kids back in class where they need to be and where they want to be, and developing not only the education that they're going to need for the rest of their life, but the social skills and the interaction that goes along with that. So thank all of you for your patience tonight and your participation, and maybe we'll all be, everybody will be here in person before too much longer. So thank you. And we are in closed session.